Hi, welcome to one of Pattern Parrot's How to Make videos. I'm Angela and I'm the creator and owner of Pattern Parrots. I've put together some of these videos to help you make your own creature from one of my patterns. I do hope you enjoy making them as much as I have done creating them. Welcome to another Pattern Parrot how-to video. In this video we're going to be discussing adding hair to one of my felt animals. This is Liu, and as you can see he's got a very full mane of hair here, but there are several ways that you can attach hair to your animals, so I'm going to talk to you about two of those ways now, and also briefly discuss other types of methods that you could use. So there are different ways of adding hair to your felted animal. You could use strips of felt cut to make it look like a mane. Another way is you could needle felt wool tips onto your animal. As you will be working on felt anyway, it's easier to needle felt. But the two ways that I prefer are the backstitch method and the single hair follicle method. So here's a couple of examples that I've got here. This is the backstitch method, which I'll go through in a moment. So you can see it lays quite flat, and it has a row in the centre, which is securing. And this here is the single follicle method using a curly hair and a straight yarn, which looks a bit more haphazard. I can then brush it out using a pet brush to separate the strands, which makes it a bit more fluffy, which is what I have done on Liu here. I've used a mercerated cotton yarn and then used a dog comb to brush it out and make it a bit more of a full head. So it's really down to your preference as to what you prefer. So I'm going to quickly show you how to do these two methods. So with the backstitch method, what you need is a few strands of the same length. So I generally wrap my yarn around my hands and then use scissors to cut the same length. Then you lay that yarn onto your felted head, and with a needle and thread bring it down and up through the first strand of yarn, and then go back down through the second strand of yarn and then back up. So you're passing your needle through the yarn strands when you're doing your backstitch, which helps secure it to your base felt. So you can move your strands around to the right distance apart that you want it to be. Backstitch again. And then when you're happy, you can secure your thread. Now you can see that the yarn is actually now attached quite securely to your felt base. If you want, you could leave it like that, or like I like to do, is you can then tie a knot over the top of each strand. So you get both ends of a strand of yarn and tie a knot over the top. And that then makes it even more secure. Then when you're happy, so I've tied the knots there. Here I've got it just sewn, just on the end there. When you're happy with it, then you can trim it to shape. So lift it up in a bunch and give it a little haircut trim. and then it could look a little bit more, it will stick up if you tease it, but if you brush it, it will even more, it will stand up even more even. As that comes in rows, you will then have to move it to one side and do another row a short distance away, and then keep working your way along the head of your animal. So that's the back stitch method there. Another method is doing it singles, in single hair follicles. So I'll show you with the straight yarn at the moment. So you'll need to thread a needle with the yarn, which can be quite tricky. So you have to find the right needle, test a few out, make sure it will go through your felt easily, because when you come to pulling the yarn through, it will be a bit stiffer to do. And so you have to give it a bit of a tug and a pull. So it can be quite wearing on your fingers. So you may want to do the hair in several stages. If you're having trouble threading your yarn, I generally have a little pot of water next to me. I dampen the end of my yarn to help me thread it through, and also trimming it and to make all the little fluffy bits disappear as well obviously helps with that. So with your animal head in front of you, push down and back up through like you would like for a running stitch, and then pull your yarn through. Now, as I said, it will take time and teasing through. You will have to give it a bit of a pull and a yank. There we go. Pull it through until you've got a reasonable amount left there. That's probably about 4 centimetres, and then tie it off with the double knots. So tie the two ends together, double knots, and then trim. But as you see, you don't have to thread your needle so often because you've got a nice long length of yarn on there. And then do your next stitch next to it. I would build these up in rows and, like a brick wall, offset my rows. I've got the wrong needle here, I'm afraid, but as I said, a needle is a really important thing to test. I would offset my rows so that you're building a brick wall effect, which means that your animal doesn't look as regimented, although you may like to have it a bit more regimented. That's up to you. So you can see there, I've tied a few of the hair follicles together. It is a more time consuming method. You can still brush it out with a pet brush to give it more fluffy look, but it's really your preference. I'm going to move over to the other yarn here. Now, this is quite funky. I like this. It is a curled yarn, which I have made by wrapping my yarn around a kebab stick. To make your curled yarn, you measure lengths. I measured the length of my arm from hand to shoulder. I measured lengths of the yarn and then soaked it in water along with the kebab sticks so that they don't burn. Then you wrap your yarn around your kebab stick and place it on an oven tray. Bake it in the oven at about 180 degrees for approximately 10 to 15 minutes. Take it out before it burns and leave it to dry and cool down. When it is dried and cooled down, you can then unwrap your yarn from your kebab stick and you end up with some very luscious curls. So I've got this lovely bundle of curls here, which I will be using on the lion's head. So those are the several methods that you could use. You've got the backstitch method, which leaves you in rows. It is quicker to do, and you can still do single strands if you'd like to, but it is quicker to do because you can do it in large batches, which you can then brush out. If you wanted to use the curly yarn, you could do that, although it'd be quite tricky to keep it laying flat while you're backstitching over, but that is your choice. Or you can do the single hair follicle method, which is finding an appropriate needle to feed through. It can be tough on the fingers to do this, so I would suggest you do it over several sessions. Again, you can brush that out, or you can use the curlier hair, which actually you can space out your hair follicles a lot more because of the nature of where the wool's all bunched up. It just gives a better coverage.